So for week 2, I'm going to be answering a question from Kevin Chavez, basically asking if the U.S. and Europe should assist weak states in nation building to avoid bloodshed and violence from spilling over, or should we focus instead on direct security threats? So yes, I do believe that based off our readings and recent events that the U.S. and Europe should assist weak states in building to avoid bloodshed and violence. So first, you kind of have to ask, like, what are the effects of weak and failing states? So since the governing body of those states don't have a monopoly on the um, threat of violence, these states can be influenced by terrorist organizations, they can have perpetual internal conflict, they can be susceptible to drug trade, illegal arms trade, smuggling, fall under dictatorship rule, and demonstrate gross human rights violations. So how could this impact the US or Europe? Well, the influence from terrorist organizations can have a spillover effect on the rest of Europe and the US, and this can be seen with recent attacks in France and even here in the States. The more power these organizations have, the greater outreach they can obtain, and then their security threat, of course, goes up. Another impact is disruption of trade, increase in immigration or refugee status, which is the outflow of people. And so what would be more important to focus on? Would it be direct security threats or weakened failing states? I'd say focus on both. It's kind of a difficult part of the question to answer, but weak states are kind of a newer type of threat that we're not used to. We're used to direct security threats. So weak states kind of possess something new. And Kevin mentions that in his quote from chapter 12, which states that weak states of the past would be absorbed into another state, making it viable, unlike today where they have to kind of fend for themselves indefinitely, no matter how much they're failing. So this new type of security threat can endanger the US and Europe, like I said, by fueling terrorist organizations, disrupting trade, which can have a negative impact on the economies. If ignored, the impact could be equal to or greater than that of a direct security threat. So yes, focus on both. It's just going to need to be tailored. The weak state is going to need to be tailored to something new since it's a newer type of threat that we're not used to dealing with. And it can have major impacts on the US and Europe.